Hey y'all! Sorry I'm not in school today, but I wanted to make sure that you could do your work. Well, no days off, right? So, let's go ahead. We are on page 363. We're going to do all of this together. And of course, I would love for you to try it on your own first and then come here. But if you've already tried it, let's go ahead and get into it, right? So, as Sweeney jogs on the track at her school, she uses a watch to track her progress. At this rate, how long will it take her to jog 16 laps? So, again, let's go ahead and think. We know ratios and rates. We're comparing things. And so the two things that we happen to be comparing here are the minutes and the laps, right? So they go ahead and give that to you. So let's do our minutes and our laps. I'm going to do, because I am at my home, I do not have the calculator you all have with you all. So I'm not going to do a proportion today. Only because I didn't look up the scale factor already, and I don't want to confuse anybody. So, can you use a proportion? Absolutely. But if you don't, there's a way to do it without actually having to use any decimals. So, here we are going to write down the ratio that was given to us. So, we have 15 minutes for 6 laps. But she's jogging 16 laps. And so a lot of you all ask Miss B, how do I know when to reduce? When you cannot make this number into the laps, right? We cannot make 6 into 16. Then that's a sign that you should probably reduce, right? So that we can get to 16. So if we go ahead and we divide, right? Let's go ahead and do that. So the greatest common factor between 15 and 6 is 3. And again, 3 would be called our scale factor, right? So 15 divided by 3 is 5, right? And then our laps, 6 divided by 3 is 2. Correctamundo. So from here, right, we want to get to 16 laps. We want to go from 2 to 16, and we're going to multiply by, you guessed it, 8. Right? And we're going to multiply by 8 up top as well. So 5 times 8 does happen to equal 40. So it should take her 40 minutes to jog 16 laps. So it would take about 40 minutes. And actually, in this time that I have been working on this, I thought about it. And we can use a proportion. So if you still compare the minutes to the laps, right, and we have 15 to 6, we want to get to 16 down here. You can go ahead and find that unit rate, right? That would be a very important thing here, so that you can figure out, well, how long does it take for her to run one lap? And so with that information, for one lap, it takes 2.5 minutes. So if we want to know about 16 laps, right, we can multiply 16 by 2.5 and we'll get to that 40. Okay, and then here you can find that unit rate to help you get to the next part. Okay, let's go ahead and flip the page. And so here, this is the same thing that they were trying to tell you before, or that I just mentioned. Here you can use the, it's the same problem, sorry guys. At the top, you can use that ratio table, and you can find that unit rate right here. One lap takes 2.5 minutes, and so then you can just multiply by 6. As you saw how we just solved it on 363, you don't actually have to use any decimals to get there, but if you like to, then you can. For the second modelet, they show you using that unit rate again. How can you get to that unit rate? You can go ahead and divide out, right, that 5 over 2, which is what we got. And when you take 5 halves, you get 2.5. So you can multiply the number of laps by the unit rate for the minutes per lap. And that was something that you all worked on your bell ringer today, blank per blank, words per minute, towels per dryer, whatever the case may be, right? That's what you all were working on. Okay, so going along to page 365, number 1, it says, look at the table in the first modeling. Where do you see the unit rate for the ratio of minutes to laps? Describe how the unit rate is found. So again, when you go back and you turn your page to 364, that first modeling, the unit rate would be 1 to 2.5. So your unit rate, and again, you should be doing this in pencil. That's why I'm doing it in pencil as well. Make sure you have a pencil. If you don't have one, please ask a friend or something. We want it in pencil. So the unit rate will be 1 to 2.5. And how do you know what, or describe how the unit rate is found? Well, again, you can take any of these and divide. So the easiest way to have done that would have been 5 over 2, right? You take 5 divided by 2, and that equals 2.5. And that's how you can find that unit rate. You could have taken the information that she gave you, 15 divided by 6. And when you broke it down, you would have gotten 2.5. And again, under all numbers, there is that 1. So 2.5 over 1, which means 2.5 per 1 something, that unit rate, that lap. And again, we know that a unit rate is a ratio where one of the quantities, I'm spelling like y'all, ha ha ha, you're supposed to laugh, quantities is compared to 1. And that's what a unit rate is. That's what we're using here. So hopefully you remember that from yesterday, where we looked at 359 to 360. And if you don't, of course, you can go back to that YouTube video as well and watch on the introduction to a unit rate. So for number 2, it says, look at the second modeling. Why can you use a fraction to show the unit rate for the ratio of 2.5 minutes to the laps? And so when you do that, when you take 5 over 2, what we're really doing here is we're dividing by that denominator of 2, right? So 2 divided by 2 is 1, right? That's where the 1 comes in. And 5 divided by 2 is 2.5, right? So why can you use a fraction to show the unit rate for the ratio of minutes to laps? Because you can divide the number in a ratio to find the unit rate. A fraction shows the division of the numerator by the denominator, right? So we're just dividing both up top, and of course that 1 is there. That's why we get that per lap, right? For number 3, it says write a multiplication expression that uses the unit rate to find the missing value of the equivalent ratio. How long will it take Ashwini to jog 16 laps? And so the multiplication expression that uses the unit rate, if we know that they take 2.5 minutes, 2.5 minutes to run 1 lap, well, we have 16 laps. So that multiplication expression would be 16 times 2.5, which equals 40 minutes, right? That's how long it's going to take Ashwini to jog the 16 laps, right? So then it asks you, how long will it take Ashwini to jog 22 laps? Explain how you can use the unit rate to find the total number of minutes it takes Ashwini to run any number of laps. So again, the same concept. We took the number of laps that we wanted and we multiplied by how long it takes to run 1 to get to our answer. So go ahead and do that. So we can take 22 and multiply it by 2.5. Go ahead and pause this video so that you can figure it out. Don't be lazy in your learning. For those of you all that got it already, 22 times 2.5 equals 55 minutes. And it would take her 55 minutes to run 22 laps. So all we have to do really, right, is take the number of laps and multiply it by how long it takes to run 1 lap. So the length of 1 lap to get the time for laps. Okay? So the time for those laps. That's all we got to do. Take the number of laps, multiply it times the length of 1 lap, and then we get the time for all the laps. Okay? So just make sure that you see that there so that you can find if she did 80 laps or if she did 6 laps or however many Ashwini chooses to do. For number 5, it says, how does a unit rate relate to two quantities in a ratio? How can a unit rate help you solve problems involving equivalent ratios? So, again, we just wrote that, but let me give you a more proper definition. A unit rate is a factor that relates two quantities in a ratio. Again, that's why we're using pencil. Make sure you're doing that too. Where one of the quantities is 1. Okay? And so how can a unit rate help you solve problems involving equivalent ratios? You can multiply or you could divide by that unit rate to find the missing part. So it makes it easier because we can multiply or divide by the unit rate to figure out the equivalent ratio. And again, the equivalent ratio is your best, or not the equivalent ratio, the unit rate is your best friend. Because if we have anything compared to 1, we know exactly what to multiply by, because anything times 1 is itself. We know exactly what to multiply to make sure that we can solve that equivalent ratio. So we love unit rates. Okay, so number 6 is asking you to reflect, think about the models and strategies that we used. They used the table. We used the ratio table, but also we could have solved it. I showed you a different way on 363 where you didn't even have to find the unit rate, right? So you could use that method or you could use the unit rate method to help you out. So go ahead and tell me which one you like and why. My feelings will not be hurt, right? Go ahead and do that. You can pause this video so that you can make sure you have all this great stuff written. And I'm going to go ahead and move on to the last page. These problems for us to solve together. So, again, my goal for you is to pause it right here, right? Take some time to go ahead and try to solve these, right? Solve them without me, okay? It's going to be a time where you can't ask Miss B how to find a unit rate. So, please make sure that you go ahead and give these a try first. Pause the video, try 7, 8, and 9, and then come back here and check it. So this is your last call to go ahead and do that. But I am going to continue as of now. So number 7 says, Alejandro is buying chicken for a barbecue at the rate shown in the weekly special. What does 7 pounds of chicken cost? Show your work. So again, in this weekly special, we have the 4 pounds for $5. Oh, sorry. The 4 pounds for $5. And so that's what we're comparing. The pounds of chicken, right? And that doesn't mean laughing but serious. That's how we show pounds in math class. Compared to the money, right? The cost of it. Okay, so they give us this ratio of 4 to 5. And they want you to go ahead and find that unit rate. Go ahead. So there's always 2 unit rates. You can figure out how much $1 worth of or $1, how many pounds that'll buy you, or you can figure out the price of 1 pound. And normally when you go to the store, that's what happens. You find the price per pound, and then they just charge you by how many pounds there are. So we're gonna be normal, right? We're gonna figure out that 1. So if that's the case, I know how to get from 4 to 1. Divide by 4. Here, I'm going to divide by 4. If you take 5 and you divide by 4, please do not write 5/4. We don't talk about money in fractions. You're going to have to make it a decimal. So again, if you need to use your calculator, fine. You can also do the long division. We know how to do this. And whatever strategy you choose, you should get to $1.25. Those of you all that got 5/4, make it a mixed number, 1 1/4. Write 1 whole, and a fourth is equivalent to 25 cents. So 1.25 is your, not your answer, but that's your unit rate, right? And so from here, we want to know about 7 pounds of chicken, right? So 1 to 7 is multiplying by 7. Here, we multiply by 7, so 7 times 125. And again, do not be lazy in your learning. You know how to do that. 125 times 7. 5 times 7 is 5, carry the 3. 7 times 2 is 14, plus 3 is 17. And 7 times 1 is 7, plus 1 is 8. Our decimal point was right here. We have 2 numbers after our decimal place, none here. So we need 2 here. So this should be $8.75, right? And so that's how much it's going to cost. 7 pounds of chicken. So 7 pounds cost $8.25. Okay. So it says, look at problem 7. How much chicken can Alejandro buy for $8? Show your work. So let's find now, because they switched the question up on us, let's find that alternative unit rate, right? So we're still going to compare the pounds to the cost. We know our ratio is 4 to 5, but this time we're going to find out how much $1 can buy us worth of meat, right? And so from here, how do we get from 5 to 1? You divide by 5. Same thing here, divide by 5. 4 divided by 5. Those that know our fractions, we know 1/5 is 0.2, so we multiply that by 4. This should be 0.8 or 80 cents for those of y'all that want that 0 there, right? But we're not trying to buy $1 worth of meat. We want to buy $8, right? That's what they give us here, $8 worth of meat. So how do we get from 1 to 8? We multiply by 8. This 8 here is called that scale factor. We're going to multiply by the same scale factor up top times 8. So you take $8 and you multiply it by your unit rate. You get 6.4, which makes sense, right? 8 times 8 is 64. You just need to know where to put your decimal, right? So that means that they're going to buy 6.4 pounds of chicken for $8. So they're going to get 6.4 pounds of chicken. Okay. Last but definitely not least, let's talk about Annika. So for number 9, it says Annika volunteers to fold t-shirts for the runners at a marathon. She folds 8 t-shirts every 6 minutes. At this rate, how many t-shirts does Annika fold in 45 minutes? Please show your work. With this problem, again, look at what you're comparing. We're comparing the t-shirts to the minutes. So the t-shirts to the minutes, right? So we're folding, or Annika, not us. We're folding 8 t-shirts to 6 minutes. Again, I will go ahead and reduce this. I know the lesson is about finding the unit rate, but sometimes you want to use what's in your toolbox, right? You don't always have to learn something new. Just go and answer the question, guys, right? That's what I'm going to ask you to do on the quiz. Use whatever strategy you like to be able to answer the question. So sometimes you can go off, right? We know that we want to reduce this, and both of these numbers have a greatest common factor of 2, right? So we'll be at 4 to 3. And we want to know at this rate, how many t-shirts does Annika fold in 45 minutes? 45, right? You know how to get there. 3 to 45, you can multiply by 15. Multiply by 15. 4 times 15 is 60, right? So there you have 60. So that means she can fold 60 t-shirts in 45 minutes. And again, we didn't have to find a unit rate. Now, can you? Yeah, again, go ahead, go off, go crazy. But sometimes, like I said, you don't have to. Okay, so excuse me, the sheet that you'll be doing actually after this is all about just finding the unit rate. You're not actually going to take this information yet. We're not even going to do this yet. I just want you to be able to find a unit rate. So you're going to need a calculator for it. Please make sure that you try your best. Yes, I left you something challenging. Talk to the people at your table. Don't get too loud. Let's be at a voice level one, not even two. Voice level 1. Let's work together, and I pinky promise we'll talk about it tomorrow. Okay? So, I'm going to leave this here. 60 shirts. I'm going to wish you all the best. You can go ahead and grab your sheet from your guest teacher. And if you need anything from me, you can feel free to message me, and I'll message you back as soon as possible. Not necessarily during class, but I'll message you. I will message you back. All right? Behave yourselves. I miss y'all, and I will see you all tomorrow. All right. Have a good one, y'all.